एउटा खाली यो फुटनोट चाहिँ के हो भने अब धेरै कतिपय साथीहरू चाहिँ दे डिडन्ट ह्याभ एन्थ्रोपोलोजिकल ब्याकग्राउन्ड होइन इन देयर बिए अर मास्टर्स अनि यो चाहिँ अब एमएको साथीको सेकेन्ड सेमेस्टर हो अनि हाम्रो एमएको साथीको फोर्थ सेमेस्टर हो बट दे आर अल्सो भनेको बोथ अफ देम आर इन द equal footing in the sense that they are both the groups are trying to write their proposal. ठीक छ मैले यति भनिसकेपछि म विनोद सर यहाँ हुनुहुन्छ हाम्रो हेड अफ द डिपार्टमेन्ट प्रोफेसर पोखरेललाई चाहिँ सिंहजीलाई चाहिँ स्वागत र धन्यवाद भनेर अनि मलाई फ्लोर
I have one notice है तपाईहरुलाई मैले मेल पनि पठाएको छु जनवरी 3 तारिक 2025 पुस 19 गते 81 साल बिहान 8 बजेदेखि 11 बजेसम्म यहाँ सेमिनार छ त्यो रेगुलर क्लास हो है यहाँ हाम्रो प्रोफेसर जेरेमी स्पोनले मिक्स्ड मेथडको बारेमा मिक्स्ड मेथड एन्थ्रोपोलोजीमा कसरी प्रयोग गर्ने तपाईहरु जो रिसर्च कोर्स गर्नु तपाईलाई धेरै काम लाग्न सक्छ कसरी मिक्स्ड मेथड प्रयोग गर्नु भने त्यस दिन चाहिँ तपाईको हाजिरीहरु काउन्ट त्यो क्लासकै बराबर काउन्ट हुन्छ शुक्रबार हामी आउने नआउने भन्ने हैन र त्यसको अर्को एउटा चाहिँ के भने यहाँ सधैँ खाइरहेको भन्दा राम्रै खालको लन्च व्यवस्था हुन्छ 11 बजेतिर फेरि लन्च बिहानै दिएर टाप गरे त्यस्तो खालको चाहिँ एउटा
मिक्स मेथड र कोलाबोरेटिभ
रिसर्चको बारेमा उसको यो नेपालको अर्थक्वेक 2015 गएदेखि उसले निरन्तर रूपमा लङ्गिट्युडनल स्टडी गरिरहेको छ उसको सेयरिङ पनि छ यहाँ तपाईहरु सबै आउनुभयो भने उसको त्यो होटलमा पनि ग्रान्ड फिनाले छ यहाँ राम्रो चाहिँ को उपस्थित भएछ तिनीहरूलाई त्यहाँ पनि बोलाउने हो यहाँ बुझ्यो नि कुरो अब एउटा बिरामी सिरामी हुने कुरो त्यस्तै हो नभए यसो अल्छी गर्ने जाडो हो के हो जाडो त त्यो मान्दा हुने हो नमान्दा हुँदैन त्यस्तै हो एनीवे थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच लिसिङ इट इज आवर ओनर टु यु हियर इन आवर MPhil MA class and I hope that our student will be benefited from your experience, your field experience and it is a great opportunity of our students to exchange the ideas. I'm hopeful that they exchange their ideas also. Some of them are already engaged in research project. Our Aruna is already got a degree from Poland? Austria. And she has also, I suppose that she has a good experience of research and some of them have already written their master's thesis. And it will be good to your presence here. And from my department side, because I will not continue I have not time to listen the whole your lecture. I'll listen little bit and then I will leave from out here. Therefore, I will honor giving law from my department. ये देखो this Margaret Mead. चिया खानुपर्छ तातो चिया यसमा राखौँ 2 कप राख्छ त्यसमा म पनि यता बसेर सुन्छु
के मात्रै हुन्छ
यहाँ सुन्नु भनेको बोल्ने उता फर्केर उतै
okay with this thing now the floor is yours. So hopefully it will take like 30 to 40 minutes or 40 to 50 minutes. No, don't worry about the time. We are timeless. Timeless is a philosophical problem. Sorry, English and not. So and with her after our presentations we will have some discussions, right? तपाईले आफ्नो रिसर्चको कुरालाई रिलेट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ अनि उहाँको प्रेजेन्टेसन पनि I think it will be a very wonderful and fruitful project for you. So please.
Yes, so as I'm getting nervous because this research is out there.
म
So
पछाडि
as
बस्छु
said, this is not a very refined, like final, I'm like in the last stage of my field work. So I'm kind of look back to this journey and kind of share some of the struggles and problems that I have come across and what we can kind of think about field work or anthropological research from like this journey. And first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I've met some of the friends already, I think, and some I haven't. So really, this is supposed to be like my own experience, and I hope you can, critically kind of look at that and hope that will be helpful for you. So, Sullivan more.
ठिक छ मैले ल्याङ्ग्वेज क्यान बी बोथ भन्न खोजेको तपाईँहरूलाई पनि सोध्नलाई पछिलाई पनि भनेर आइदर नेपाली अर इङ्ग्लिस
Or both.
So I'm doing my PhD in anthropology at Chinese University of Hong Kong. I'm interested in topics in law, bureaucracy, digital technology in governance, land and property. So what is this presentation about? Basically, so what is this presentation about? I'm kind of look back to this 1 year of the work, and I want to share like how I started from a research proposal that I had, and I talk about some of the technical issues in terms of access and in terms of preparation, in terms of fieldwork, field site selection. And once I started, how like kind of my research focus also changed a bit, and how I eventually decided to kind of change a lot, quite some bit of my fieldwork, right? And eventually, how do I make sense of the change itself? So I think this presentation or this sharing, the becoming of the work, becoming Malakirese, I'm trying to emphasize, so this is a process. So I feel I only got to understand what fieldwork is or what fieldwork looks like or fieldwork can be in this process. So of course, when I started my fieldwork, I had a research proposal, I wrote about my research methods, I do this and that. But I feel it's only while I was doing it, I kind of understand, oh, this is how ethnographic fieldwork looks like, or oh, I can do this as well, right? So it becomes like a process, it's a journey, so that's why I'm calling this presentation the becoming of fieldwork. So I will start from how I started my fieldwork. I think it was like almost a year ago. I was in Kathmandu and I spent maybe like 2 or 3 months with my language classes. At the same time, I was trying to figure out where do I move on to my fieldwork. Oh yeah, and also by the way, I didn't kind of articulate because my topic is the becoming of fieldwork. So I didn't kind of articulate my research topic in the beginning. I want to show how it evolved. And throughout this process, I eventually will kind of share. So I think your research more case okay. So about the beginning of the fieldwork, so it's like 1 year ago, I was in Kathmandu. I was very confused. I was very confused. I didn't know where I should go for my fieldwork. And typically, my research proposal was more on like land. In particular, there was this new law called Land Use Act, Wu Upayuk Aim. I wanted to look at its implementation in local governments. So I was interested in questions of laws, local governance, bureaucracy, and property. And the research proposal gonna like I wanted to find like where do I go? Thought Somerset volunteering. I didn't know much about Kathmandu Bahirako place, right? And I remember and I'll be very honest, and I remember I was very ashamed about that kind of ignorance of this kind of like, oh, as an anthropologist, I can't even kind of figure out the way I want to do my fieldwork. Like I don't even have an idea of, where I should go. Like I can be very honest, I had a lot of stress and I was very ashamed. So eventually I took some advice. Some friends kind of suggest me you just take a trip wherever you want, and that kind of helps you to explore. And also I got a lot of support from Suresh as well in terms of getting access and finding a place. Eventually I stayed in Namaporasi Jila for my fieldwork for over like 7-8 months. So looking back on that process of very confusing, like so looking back at that period time, so I have a few reflections I would like to share. Maybe will be helpful for you when you select your field site or decide, where do I start, right? So one thing I learned is like you can take some short trips if possible, if your funding or if your time allows. Even if your fieldwork is in Kathmandu or it's not in a place, maybe it's in an institution, maybe it's with some group of people, but just do some like short interviews, not retrievals, and that will get you started. And Elpupura Kisabami, I feel like sometimes we can be frank about our ignorance. But daily development, I was very stressed. I was like, oh, you know, but now when I look back, we start from ignorance, but then we will learn things. So we can be frank and we can, ask for help, ask for suggestions and think that, I don't know, I'm confused, do you have any suggestions? And maybe you can make a list of things you can do, right, and you can start from there. So there are different approaches of getting access. Right, for me, I end up doing a lot of fieldwork in different levels of local governance. So I think I rely on both formal and informal approaches to get access. Informal, you get someone's introduction, right? You get a reference, something like that. And formal, right? I also got help from the department in terms of getting some paperwork. And with that paperwork, you can show to the local government officers, and these kind of documents actually help a lot. And one thing we can think about is, okay, there are different approaches to getting access, formal rules, informal rules, but there are different kind of, I won't say pros and cons, but there are different dynamics, right? If you get access in this informal way through someone's introduction, or you get access in this formal way, you Gaga's book, so if you go through this formal process, I realize they're like different, it brings different dynamics to your fieldwork, Right, I'm not saying this is good or right or bad, but there are like things you can take into consideration depends on your specific research project. Right, if you have someone's introduction, it's easier for you to get trust. But at the same time, like you have a relationship, keep on saying. So you have to take into consideration like how this kind of relationship play into your fieldwork, right? If you get into access into this formal kind of procedure, like what kind of dynamics it will bring to your fieldwork. So that's something to think about. And another thing is, do we need to have it all? Just say, I started my fieldwork in ward offices, right? The Palika where I stayed, there are like over 15 ward offices. And in the beginning, I was kind of like, oh, I want to look at this. I want to, you what I and right? So you kind of, I will talk about that later. Also, I was looking at some like specific case studies. And these case studies kind of, they're kind of, so I was kind of confused. Do I want to kind of stay in all these different offices, or I should focus on one? I kind of struggled for a long time with that. And again, it depends on your research topic. But I might come back to this, and eventually I feel like we don't need to have it all. Like we don't need to be this like, like a camera where you capture like everything that happens everywhere, right? I end up build like relatively close rapport relationship with one, like maybe 2 or 3 ward offices, and in particularly one. And when I look back, I feel like if you let me do this fieldwork again, I might just focus on that one or 2, because we don't. But again, it depends on your research topic, right? It depends on what kind of questions you're asking. If you're writing the research proposal, some of you, the key thing to think about is your method has to kind of match your questions, right? So again, it depends on your research question. What I'm trying to say here is that we don't need to have it all. We don't need to be like so organized that we can capture everything that is happening in our field site, and that is impossible, right? Rather, we choose like a place for us, and from that kind of place, we look out and we understand certain things, right? I just want to keep. So, yeah, so as I mentioned, I started my fieldwork on this project on land management. So I was looking at how the government offices or Janapatinapi, they kind of implement the law, and in particular, the law was about, so you have to categorize your land, right? So there will be agricultural land and residential land, and once you categorize them, you can't change them properly. Just say tapaiको land, tapaiको जग्गा कृषि राखेपछि चाहिँ आवासीयमा सजिलैसँग change गर्न पाउँदैन. So I was looking at all those in the ward offices. Wasn't there a lot of cases of civil registration came? Civil registration भन्दाखेरि तपाईको जमिनदाता, बिहेदाता, पासेस राइट, नागरिकहरुको सेवाइस भन्ने होला. So a lot of work like this. Again, I didn't think about, I didn't know this kind of work. But while I was staying in the ward offices, I noticed a lot of things like this happening. And I start to be interested in them. Right, yeah, so I noticed this part of work that I didn't know, and in particular, I happened to match this one case where I was just introducing myself in one of the ward offices. They case mo keyboard money, so I really cool naya nagrita kanmo say it's like amapunambada nagrita voucher. But you have to prove that your father is unidentified. So I heard about this and this whole thing, and I was kind of interested in it before I went to fieldwork. But then I was like, this is like whole new topic for me. I don't think I can handle it. So I just kind of put it aside. But when I go to fieldwork, a case like this just happened, took place in the ward office. So I was witnessing the women, like her as a mother, her son, and the neighborhood, and her kind of so they were kind of discussing these things, and so I was like, maybe this is interesting because it kind of connects law, bureaucracy, and kinship, all these things together. So Bistara, I was like, maybe so this is a thing, right? And then I started to kind of look for. So I came across this one case, this so-called complicated case of civil registration of someone trying to get a birth certificate, but because of the unusual kind of family history, it's just hard for them to get the document. So I came across this one complicated case, and I started to look for other complicated cases. Complicated 거니까 유정인다나 받고 미해다나 받고. Sometimes it's because their parents don't have any documents, so it's hard for the children to get any documents. And sometimes it's because maybe their father or mother married twice, and the marriage are not properly registered. So there is a gap between the actual kind of family relationship and the relationship that is documented on the right? So I started to look for these kind of complicated cases, and that sounds very interesting to me. I did that for a while. I followed a few cases. So when they go to the ward office, I go to the ward office with them to observe the kind of process. And because of that, my fieldwork also expanded to other institutions. I will come back to that later, but so I started in the ward offices, but later I started to do research in district administrative office as well. And I also did some fieldwork in a few lawyers' offices. The Jila Posanso is because they deal with the citizenship work, right? So that's also, citizenship is not civil registration, but it's also part of the whole bureaucratic process of producing identity documents. So I started to do participant observation in the district offices to observe their workflow. And I also started to do some research in some lawyers' offices. Okay, cool, office, because that's when, when your kind of relationship in terms of parental relationship or marriage relationship is hard to be proved through kind of normal bureaucratic procedures. That's when you go to court, right? I give you an example. Just say, I married someone actually, but I didn't have the document, right? And maybe I have a child from this marriage. And what happens to my property? What happens to my children's birth certificate? So laws or lawyers or adlat, they deal with this kind of more ambiguous situation of family relationship. So I ended up doing a big research in lawyer's office. So there are the clients who come and talk about this kind of situations, and I talk to the lawyers and talk to the clients to understand what's going on. And eventually my research also expanded to the federal level of government. I have been doing research in Singapore, where the department charges civil registration and national ID. That I will talk about later because and why I kind of pick up that part of research, I will talk about that later. But basically what happens is I noticed one case and I was like, this is where I should go. Then I started to look for like similar cases. So in the beginning you have this kind of, you look for like complexity, right? You look for like, optero wala situation, and you think these are the things that is going to be exciting for anthropologists because they're complicated, they're ambiguous, right? They're contradictory. So that's the things you're looking for. But I feel gradually I start to be more interested in the ordinary or the boring part of, bureaucracy. Right, so in the beginning I was looking for the cases, the very complicated things, but gradually I start to be more interested in the very common, the very ordinary, the very everyday parts of bureaucracy. Just say, in the ward office, what's the relationship between a bureaucrat, a sativ, and an opportunity, or what's the relationship like, right? So now they use this online system to deal with all the civil registration work. So what does the system look like? How is that designed? And how do the people, how the public and how the bureaucrats kind of deal with the system? And in the district offices, so I look at the workflow, I look at the everyday work. So how do they kind of decide which document is credible or not credible, right? So I went through this journey from looking for like exciting things to trying to find, something that is anthropologically interesting in the everyday, in something that is maybe sounds boring, right? Yes, and here I said I start to examine things I used to take for granted. I talk about have been doing research in the federal level of government, and why that happened is because I start to be interested in this online system they're using to produce birth certificate, marriage certificate, migration certificate. I heard about this system every day, like while I was doing field work in ward offices, but I was like, I was like, yeah, of course everything will be online. No. And of course online I was in the key of so what? So I heard about this system all the time, but I was like, yeah. But later, I think only after like 6, 7, 8 months, I start to be interested in the system itself, right? How it kind of produce new kind of dynamics in terms of the relationship between the citizens and the relation between the citizens and the state, and the relationship between the bureaucrats and the public, right? And also start to be interested in how the system is designed. Right, so what I'm trying to answer right now in my federal government level for research is like, so you have laws, maybe here's that, right? So you have some new laws. In the past 5 years, you have new laws for civil registration, right? But based on that laws, there are some templates in the laws and you develop the laws into online system. So how does that translation process from legal texts to a system, to online system happens? What kind of problems might rise in this process? So looking back, just want to wrap up, right? So this whole process is 1 year. Why I call this talk, this presentation, the becoming of fieldwork. Because I started with a project on land and land management. And while I was doing fieldwork for that project, I noticed something interesting. And in the beginning, it's probably like 1 or 2 cases, and you were like, oh, this is anthropologically interesting. And then you start to look for more similar cases. And then at one point, you feel like, except for this very complicated, controversial case, maybe the everyday, maybe the kind of boring stuff is interesting, right? And then your fieldwork kind of get expanded to other institutions. It ended up becoming a multi-site like different levels. I ended up doing fieldwork in different levels of fieldwork institutions. So, and all this I didn't know all this while I started my fieldwork. Right, so it's really a very dynamic process. Any key comments? Yeah, just some photos from the world offices that I took. And this is a screenshot from the website of the government, kind of showing like how this kind of progress of digital governance. Just ask this someone online. So this idea of once it gets online, there will be credibility, there will be accountability, there will be no corruption, right? So these kind of ideas are behind all this work. Yes, to Rob, this is, but it doesn't matter. So this is what, over this 1 year, after this process, how my fieldwork looks like now. Right, so I have on the left side, you can call it a context. So there are like new laws. At the same time, there are also like World Bank funding. So there is this project by World Bank to develop digital civil registration, and because of that, there's funding going in, and there are like IT engineers kind of are recruited, and there are like staffs being recruited in the local government and also in the department, in the federal government. So you can call that a context, right? And in that context, I have been doing fieldwork in different levels of government offices, and I also did some real fieldwork with individual citizens where I was following these like cases I was looking at, and something that is still ongoing. I also do some studies of documents or archives. Documents are not here. So there are like these laws, but what happens in reality is these laws are not adequate sometimes, because Sabakura ekdom clearly bangniku and the local level is confused also. Contradiction. So what they do is, if there are a lot of feedback from the local government to the federal government, and they will produce some kind of documents or decisions to say, oh, you guys, you titi anusa garola, right? So I also there's also some other documents involved in my fieldwork. For example, I was doing fieldwork in the lawyer's office, so there are these legal documents. Yes, so I ended up doing a lot of participant observation in different levels of government offices. And with individual citizens, I kind of follow them around, but it's not a lot, and studies of documents and archives. Yes. So that was how my fieldwork looked like. And then, so how do we analyze the fieldwork into theory? I won't talk a lot here because I'm still kind of wrapping up my fieldwork. Maybe I hope this can be a continuous kind of conversation we have, where we talk about fieldwork and how we develop fieldwork into theory. But recently, I realized like my fieldwork kind of speaks to some general discussions, like public discussions or theoretical concepts, such as accountability. People talk about governance in Nepal so much, right? Or accountability, ideas of credibility, right? So I realized my fieldwork kind of speaks to many of these concepts, and I want to emphasize something. I find doing presentations, conference presentations during fieldwork very helpful. I did 2 presentations in Martin Zolderiko conference and Social Baha conference. Before I do that, I was like, oh shit. I was like, sometimes, to be honest, I imagined abstract. I write abstract according to my imagination and submit it. And when I was going to present, I was like, oh shit, this doesn't make sense. But I feel every time it's very helpful because it pushes you to think and it makes you kind of to test if what you are thinking makes sense to the audience. But I feel it's through this kind of presentations you start to develop more theoretical kind of thoughts from your fieldwork. When I look back on this whole process, as I said earlier, the boring stuff can turn out to be interesting. So when I was doing participant observation in the world offices in the beginning, I was like, what am I doing here? Right? Because sometimes there's not much things happening. So I feel like it's not exciting, like what I'm doing, but later, especially even after I left the fieldwork, I realized maybe there's a lot to write about in the very, in the moments where nothing much is happening. Right? So one thing I took from here is while you're doing fieldwork, maybe there are times you feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, or this is not exciting, I'm not getting the data I want. But daily development, like just try to write, try to discuss, try to observe as much as you can. And maybe the things you find not necessarily very interesting will turn out to be interesting eventually, right? And also, something I want to share, I feel sometimes fieldwork is overwhelmingly confusing and uncertain. Every day you have to make decisions in terms of what I'm going to do today. And most of the time, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do today, right? So there are so much uncertainty involved in this process, but that is a process, right? So with that, I want to emphasize, because I think I had a very cool title. So why I call this a becoming of fieldwork, right? It's going to be uncertain, but that is a process. So you have to stick with it, and eventually you will produce something. So more I hope.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it is enough for us at the moment, and then there will be some questions or curiosity later on. And we can discuss more on that. But two or three points which are very important, I think, is like how to decide field work, what is field, right? What is field itself, and then कसरी त्यो field work decide गर्ने भन्ने कुरा एउटा उ होला। अब अर्को चाहिँ यो एन्थ्रोपोलोजिस्टहरूले अब हाम्रोमा मैले अघि सुनाउनु भनेको थिएँ के वास्तवमा हामीलाई चाहिँ हामीले we've lived the reality and then we want to wonder more on that reality. So हामीलाई आफ्नो सिचुएसनबाट अलिक बढी थाहा हुन्छ। फर इक्जाम्पल अथवा कुनै विदेशी विद्यार्थीहरू रिसर्चरहरू अथवा हामीले पनि अर्को कन्टेक्स्टमा जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ होइन अलिक फरक खालको चिज पाउन सक्छौँ। त्यो बेलामा हामीले चाहिँ कहिलेकाहीँ त्यसरी आफ्नो विषयहरू चेन्ज गर्न सक्छौँ। तर इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा चाहिँ इफ यु अब्जर्भ भनेको तपाईँले सुन्नुभयो कि वास्तवमा उहाँले गर्न खोजेको त्यो लोकल गभर्मेन्ट कुनै होइन, त्यो एउटा मेन कुरा चाहिँ हाउ द लोकल गभर्मेन्ट अर ब्युरोक्रेसी इम्प्लिमेन्ट द पोलिसिज एट द लोकल लेभल होइन। वाट इज द रिलेसन्स बिट्विन द ब्युरोक्रेसी एन्ड सिटिजनसिप एट द लोकल लेभल भन्ने कुरा त मेन कुरा हो। अनि सी वान्टेड टु एन्टर इन्टु दोज इस्युज थ्रु ल्यान्ड इस्युज बट बिङ इन द फिल्ड होइन। त्यहाँ चाहिँ अब त्योभन्दा अरू केसहरू चाहिँ मोर प्रोमिनेन्ट रहेछ, अरू केसहरू चाहिँ मोर कन्सर्निङ रहेछ होइन लोकल पिपलको लागि भनेपछि। एन्ड सी सिफ्टेड एन्ड देन सी एक्चुली सिफ्ट टु अ न्यू गेट, न्यू इन्ट्री पोइन्ट द्याट इज द सिटिजनसिप इस्यु होइन। त्यो खालको एउटा त्यो खालको एउटा चिज हो। त्यो एकदम इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुराहरू हो। त्यसले गर्दा तपाईँले कहिलेकाहीँ हेर्दाखेरि त्यो मेन क्वेसन त्यो सेन्स चाहिँ एउटै हो खास चाहिँ त्यसरी हुन्छ। अर्को चाहिँ अब रमाइलो कुरा चाहिँ होइन जस्तै अर्को चाहिँ यो जुन तपाईँहरूले पनि हामी सबैजनाले तपाईँको सबैजनाले के गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ हामीलाई थाहा छ। त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि यति बेलासम्म एटलिस्ट अब चेन्ज गर्नु भएन भने तपाईँलाई पनि त्यो वास्तवमा यो के भन्छ यो त्यो वाट इज मोर होइन त्यो भनौँ न तपाईँको चाहिँ यो इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुनसक्छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ फिल्डमा गएपछि त्यो त्यो तपाईँले आफूले ल्याउने खालको डेटा छ। अहिले त जेनरल अब्जर्भेसनको आधारमा प्रपोजल बनाएको हुन्छ भने त्यसरी आउने रहेछ। तर त्यो चाहिँ अब तपाईँ हामीहरूलाई विशेष गरी यो एमफिल र एमएको साथीहरू अलिक बढी लिमिटेसन किन यु हेभ टु कम्प्लिट योर थेसिस विदिन आइडियल्ली विदिन 6 months होइन। त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यु हेभ भेरी लिटल टाइम टु डु फिल्ड वर्क लाइक 3 months को होइन टाइम चाहिँ फिल्ड वर्कको लागि भन्नु भनिन्छ। अदरवाइज अब हामीले पिएचडी गर्नु हामीलाई अब बढी तपाईँहरूले पनि पिएचडी गर्नु तपाईँलाई अलिकति टाइम हुन्छ क्या। फर इक्जाम्पल आई एक्चुली ट्राभल टु 4, 5, 6 villages in Tarai होइन बिफोर आई एक्चुली ल्यान्ड इन्टु वान होइन। त्यो चाहिँ झन्डै 1.5-2 महिना त मैले ठाउँ नै छान्नलाई मेरो समय भयो क्या होइन। तर त्यो खेर जाने कुरा चाहिँ होइन, त्यो खेर जाने पनि होइन होइन। त्यो त फिल्डवर्क आफूमा च्यालेन्जिङ कुरा त हुँदै हो। तर अब मलाई लागेको चाहिँ हामी धेरै त ब्ल्याङ्क भएको छौँ क्या अहिले पनि। इभन प्रोपोजलको फेरि पनि एकदम ब्ल्याङ्क जस्तो ला के हो कसो त्यो ला के हो कसो भन्ने खालको छ नि त्यो ब्ल्याङ्क इग्नोरेन्स होइन। त्यो एक खालको त्यो थट नै कहीँ ब्लक गरेर बसेको छ भने जस्तो हो। त्यो आफै पनि एउटा प्रोसेस हो त्यो होइन। यु हेभ टु गो थ्रु द्याट प्रोसेस होइन टु गेट मोर क्लियरर आइडियाज होइन। त्यसलाई त्यो चिन्ता गर्नुपर्ने विषय होइन भनेको ड्युरिङ द फिल्ड वर्क अल्सो ड्युरिङ द प्रपोजल राइटिङ फेज तपाईँको आफ्नो त्यो रिसर्च त्यो फर्मुलेसनको फेजमा पनि तपाईँहरू कहिले ब्लक हुन्छ क्या होइन। के हो आउँदै आएन भने जस्तो हुन्छ नि त्यो पेन एउटा खालको एङ्जाइटी त्यो एउटा पेन होइन। आउँदै आएन आनन्द सुत्यो भने त भएन, तर आउँदै आएन भनेर त्यो चिन्ता हुन्छ नि तपाईँको कोरी होइन। त्यो एङ्जाइटी त्यो पेन त्यो सफरिङ अथवा त्यो तपाईँलाई त्यो अनिजी हुन्छ नि त्यो आफै पनि एउटा प्रोसेस हो मेरो विचारमा। अनि धेरैजना मान्छेहरूको त्यो अनुभव छ खासमा विशेष गरेर त्यो आफै पनि प्रोसेस हो। त्यो भएर तपाईँहरूलाई आएन भने चाहिँ म खत्तम के हो भन्ने होइन। त्यो कुरा रिफ्लेक्सन गर्नको लागि चाहिँ एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण हुन्छ पछि गएर। तपाईँको त्यो पनि भनेको तपाईँ ब्ल्याङ्कमा हुनुहुन्छ, केही पनि छैन, फिल्डमा गइसक्यो, डेटै छैन, मान्छे भेटिँदैन, द्याट इज अल्सो पार्ट अफ द डेटा लेटर अन। त्यो तपाईँको चाहिँ त्यसले गर्दा त्यसमा धेरै चिन्ता नगर्दा हुन्छ भन्ने खालको एउटा अर्को कुरा मैले उहाँकोबाट सिकेको कुरा त्यो हो। अनि अर्को चाहिँ सबभन्दा महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा चाहिँ यो फिल्डवर्क भनेको चाहिँ फुल अफ अनसर्टेनिटी कुरा हो भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ होइन। यु नेभर नो भोलिपल्ट गएर के हुन्छ थाहा छैन होइन। मेरोमा त्यो अलमोस्ट प्रत्येकचोटि जस्तो होइन। अब त्यो मैले एमए गर्दा एमफिल गर्दा पिएचडी गर्दाखेरि आई हेभ सिमिलर एक्सपिरियन्सेस के होइन। गयो के गर्यो अब मगर गाउँमा गएको छ, जाँड खाएको छ, झाम्रे नाचेको छ होइन। अब बाहिरबाट केटा छ, तरुणी मान्छेहरू हामीले नाच्न त हाल नि। अब भोलि अर्को गाउँमा त्यो बाहिरबाट को केटा आएको रहेछ, हाम्रो तरुणीहरू चाहिँ उसो नाचिरहेको छ भन्छ, भोलि ज्ञान लिएर हस्पिटलमा के गर्नु हामीले चाहिँ पार्टिसिपेट अब जसरी गरेर होइन। अब म माथि त्यो फिल्ड सिफ्टिङ कल्टिभेसन गरेर आएको बेलामा एकजना भाइ पुरा बन्दुक सधैँ आइरहनु हुन्थ्यो क्या मोटरको बन्दुक लिएर आएर को यो मेरो जग्गा फेर्ने को गर्ने हाम्रो किपटमा भनेर बन्दुक लिएर जहिले हान्दै लाउनु डर है अब है। नम्बर 1। नम्बर 2 चाहिँ हेर सधैँ फिल्डमा जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ तपाईँले खालि अब्जर्भेसन गर्ने रिसर्च गर्ने होइन, यु आर अल्सो बिङ रिसर्च एट द सेम टाइम होइन। तपाईँको आफ्नो रिसर्च पार्टिसिपेन्ट्सहरूबाट त्यहाँको लोकल गभर्मेन्ट छ त्यो छ होइन। फर इक्जाम्पल भनौँ न, अब हाम्रो के भन्छ यो साबीले चाहिँ अहिले यो सेक्स चोइसको बारेमा होइन, सेक्स प्रेफरेन्सको बारेमा बच्चाहरू जन्माउन छोरा मान्छे चाहन्छ नि, त्यो गर्ने बेलामा चाहिँ अब त्यो अर्कै त्यो के भन्छ त्यो अल्ट्रासाउन्ड गरेर पहिल्यै चाहिँ त्यो डिटेक्ट गरेर छोरी रहेछ भने चाहिँ अबर्सन गर्ने होइन, त्यो बारेमा फिल्डवर्क गर्दैछ। अब उसको लागि जानु पऱ्यो, एउटा त घर भयो होइन जसले त्यसो गर्छ। त्यसपछि सेकेन्डमा कहाँ जानु पऱ्यो, त्यो मेरी स्टोप्स क्लिनिक भनेर ठाउँमा जानु पऱ्यो नि होइन। अब त्यसरी जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ कहिले जानु त परिहाल्यो, फिल्ड हो त्यो होइन। को आउँछ, किन आउँछ, कसरी आउँछ, के छ त्यसको होइन, त्यो खालको बुझ्नुलाई। त्यहाँबाट उनीहरूलाई के लाग्दा थ्रेट फिल हुनसक्छ नि कि यो सूचना लिएर के गर्छ भन्न त भन्यो होइन, कतै हाम्रो व्यापारलाई चाहिँ ह्याम्पर गर्छ कि भन्ने हुन्छ नि होइन। अनि त्यसपछि मेरो विचारमा पुलिसलाई बुझ्न जानुपर्छ होला, अरू कहाँ जानुपर्छ होला भन्दाखेरि यो सिट त त्यो म मेरो सूचनालाई के चाहिन्छ, म कहाँ जानुपर्छ भन्ने पनि थाहा हुँदैन पहिला नै। अनि एट द सेम टाइम तपाईँलाई त्यो एउटा अनसर्टेनिटीहरू होइन त्यो खालको के हो कसो भन्ने खालको पनि भइरहेको छ। सायद यो चिजहरू चाहिँ प्रपोजलको फेजदेखि नै तपाईँहरू प्रिपेयर हुनुभयो भने आई थिङ्क द्याट विल बी भेरी हेल्पफुल। अनि अर्को चाहिँ अघि भने जस्तो अब थ्योरीसँग भन्दाखेरि त्यो बेसिक केही कन्सेप्ट्सहरू होइन जुन चाहिँ एन्थ्रोपोलोजिकल इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कन्सेप्ट्सहरूसँग त्यसलाई लिङ्क गर्ने कुराहरू हो, त्यो चाहिँ अहिले तपाईँले चिन्ता नगर्दा हुन्छ। तर तपाईँलाई थाहा चाहिँ हुनु पऱ्यो म के डेटा लिन जाँदैछु भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ। यो चाहिँ तपाईँहरूलाई अलिक रिलेभेन्ट होला भनेर मैले खालि अलिक यसलाई ब्रिफ मात्रै गरिदिएको। नाउ formally you want to add something and then we open the floor. Okay. Please.
सरले भन्नुभएको कुरा मलाई एकदम ठिक लाग्यो है। जस्तै वाट इज द फिल्ड, हाउ टु डिसाइड, हामी पछि छलफल गर्न सक्छौँ। तर यो चाहिँ रिसर्च प्रपोजल आई प्रेजेन्ट दिस एज मेरो एउटा रिसर्च प्रपोजल थियो अनि बिचमा सबै चेन्ज भयो। But even I did that, I hope to emphasize एउटा चाहिँ सरले भन्नुभएको जस्तै something changed but something didn't change, right? Your main kind of research concerns actually didn't change. I still want to go back to the original research proposal. I still think that's a valid, interesting research proposal, but maybe due to के कारणले गर्दा मैले गर्न सकिनँ होला। तर a lot of things didn't change, right? So that's why writing research proposal is helpful. And the helpful ones, I got this advice from a few scholars, but more आफैले गर्नुसँग त follow गर्न पाएन। तर I want to share because I was told you can think about research proposal also as a process. Just the fieldwork सुरु गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो त research proposal लेखिसक्नुभयो होला। तर यो fieldwork गर्दा you can still revise it, right, as a short process. It helps you to kind of see what has changed, what hasn't changed, what your focus should shift. I didn't manage to do that very well, but I think that's a great kind of suggestion. Maybe you can also try it out while you do your own research. That being said, I feel it's very important to leave space for yourself to write and think. Another thing I struggle a lot in my fieldwork is like every day I feel like, oh, you want to go out, you need to do more fieldwork, right? But at the same time, like, oh, I need to ask the fieldwork BI, field notes BI China. So you have this constant kind of tension between should I do more or should I write more? So I don't have a perfect answer there. I'm still struggling until these last days of my fieldwork, but it's something to work on, right? What is your pace? What is your work kind of pace like? Do I have like key schedule? Do you kind of write in the day or go to work in the evening, or you take 1 or 2 days off a week to write? So that's something you have to work on, right? So fieldwork is not just about being in the field, it's also about writing and thinking and leaving space for yourself. And you have to figure out what's your kind of schedule. And I haven't figured out yet until the last day, but that's something to think about and discuss with your peers and with your professors, with your peers. And 6 months is a lot, right? I think 6 months is a lot. When I look back, okay, I had 1 year, but there's also a lot of when, I did this and did that, I don't know what I'm doing. So what I'm trying to say is, I feel sometimes we should kind of maybe we don't need to emphasize so much on this long, I do 2 years, I do 3 years. Somewhere within our limit, we do as much as we can. But 6 months is a lot, and 3 months is also a lot. There's a lot of work you can do in 1 month, right? So I have a lot of stress about time. I always feel like I need to do more, but there's also like limitations. Now I'm kind of like, when you have time, you try to do more, but you don't kind of stress yourself out with this idea of time. Does it make sense? Yeah. And the uncertainty, right? Yes, it's uncertainty, but at the same time, it's fun if you accept that. Basically, it's like you don't know what you're going to do every day, but every day it will be different, right? Sometimes, as long as you go out, or at least as long as you start work, you start do something, and something will come up. And that's something so beautiful about your work. All right, as long as you do something, and something will come up. So that's the beauty part of uncertainty. More it wants, and we can discuss.
ल अब तपाईँहरूको केही जिज्ञासा छ भने केही कुरा सेयर इन द सेन्स कि उहाँले गर्नुभएको कुराहरूमा केही क्वेसनहरू कन्सर्नहरू छ भने
In your talk, you didn't quite mention your interaction with your supervisor.
So what I do, my supervisor, we meet my expertise हामी Zoom meeting, and I try to send a meeting को बनाकि I send her some writings. So we talk about the writings, and I meet whenever I'm in Kathmandu, and and with my supervisor in Hong Kong. So I try to write something before we discuss, and maybe that's helpful for you, but it depends on your style with the supervisor. But I found that helpful, so it pushes me to think.
Why did you choose Nepal for this study?
I ask myself that question as well. So, my master's scholarly, I was interested in South Asia. But त्यति बेला मैले पढेको South Asia भनेको Indian थियो, right? It's very Indian centric. I even had ideas in doing research in India, but there were also some like professors who kind of suggest maybe I can look at Nepal. So it's kind of a long process of deciding, and eventually I get here. But I had this I was kind of ashamed about this idea. You know, if I want to do PhD, maybe I can try to do my research somewhere else, not in China. I just have this not very, you know, it's a very general, it's a very big idea. So I kind of start with that big idea, and sometimes when I first came to Nepal, I was very kind of shy about saying that, because I feel a lot of, if you have heard some talks by like, I don't know, anthropologists from Europe or America, I kind of feel I have very different trajectories with them. Because US more, maybe many of them, they have some kind of experience. Just they like, you know, the peace corps, right? Some kind of NGOs, some kind of volunteering roles. So there are this kind of infrastructure, right? This kind of program, this kind of bring scholars here before they start my PhD. I came to Nepal just because of my PhD. So that's a very different path. And in the beginning, I was kind of very shy about that. But eventually, I feel it's everyone's own road, right? Of course, we have reference points, but everyone's journey is different. So, yeah, sorry.
Sampai सुधी सके
Okay, so सबभन्दा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ क्वेसन चाहिँ के छ त?
हजुर
सोधेको मध्ये सबभन्दा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ क्वेसन चाहिँ के छ त? But that was very easy question. Okay.
No more. Actually, I thought you were in that and
Okay, so everyone knows every.
But we can keep in touch, and I hope this can be if circumstances ask me, or I ask me, because I think it's important to talk about, you know, not fieldwork just as perfect, you know, a presentation, but we talk about problems and struggles. So
Yeah,
we can keep.
and that will be more interesting to. John sir, के सुन्नु हो?
I think your presentation is very wonderful and more useful to the student to away from the larger of the grand theoretical thoughts that all the students want to go into the field. For example, you presented that my field work speak to some general discussion of theoretical concept. For example, accountability, predictability of the governance, such kind of confidence you have to work on your field worker, your experience or encounters with the field worker. That is the theoretical approach, theoretical ideas of confidence that you draw from the field work. Like this, all the students also do not adopt the grand theory before going to field work. That is a good idea for themselves. That is it.
Yeah.
So more kind of.
What things of the field work. Thank you.
Your experience was very relevant because our friends, that is the main question that is striking in Harvard. How to go to field, what to do there. So we were thinking that way, and your experience is actually it gives us quite good help in the program.
So
Thank you for your time and presentation. Initially, you mentioned that you had faced a few challenges sorting out the field for your studies, right? So you're taking your research on a foreign land. So what specific challenges did you feel in the field that you would like to make us aware of? Yeah, that's my question.
त्यो सबै च्यालेन्ज
So that speaking of challenge, I think as you mentioned, right, as a foreigner, and also sometimes, so that speaks to the positionality kultura boiling, right? So you experience challenge relevant to what kind of person you are, what's your background, what's your gender. So because of my, kind of image as a Gani, Birisini, Nani, I think sometimes things was easy for me in terms of, for example, getting access, because people think I'm like harmless. I don't know, I assume to some point, right? Because you kind of, as a woman, or I can be very flexible, I can be very adaptive, I can kind of observe what is going on in this space and kind of fit myself in. And as a foreigner, sometimes people have low expectation of your knowledge. So maybe as a local scholar, you will be like expected to know something, but I don't have that expectation. So that turned out to be easy for me, right? But at the same time, this image as a very Yanni women, it also brings some kind of, I wouldn't say problems, but things you have to kind of, how do you make boundaries between people? Like, how do you kind of speak out, okay, this is what I want to do. I feel I'm better at kind of, okay, this is what is going on, and I kind of fit myself into that process rather than saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And sometimes I feel as an anthropologist, that is also important. Right, so we talk about fieldwork as if it's a very natural process that we just participant. We just, go with the flow. But sometimes I feel you need to be like affirmative to say, okay, I want to know this person. I want to talk to you at this particular time. I want to get access to this document. And I won't be available at this point because I need to write my field notes. So for me, that's something, I call it a challenge, but at the same time, it reflects a lot about fieldwork itself, because the kind of work produced is very relevant to the kind of person you are, right? Yeah.
It's also this. Good question.
जस्तै सुरुमा तिम्रो टाइटल अर्कै थियो, यहाँ आउँदाखेरि सिरियस रिसर्च केमा गर्नु भन्ने कुरा, यहाँ आएर चेन्ज भएको चाहिँ त्यो फिलिङ लाइक त्यो बिट्रेयलवाला फिलिङ आयो किन मैले चाहिँ अरूलाई बिट्रे गरेको एउटै चुज गर्नु गाह्रो भइरहेको छ हामीलाई, अनि एउटा चुज गरेर अनि त्यस पछाडि अर्को गरेँ किनकि त्यही भने त्यही गर्छु भने उहाँबाट आयो नि त, अनि यहाँ आएर अब गरिदिनु।
I feel, okay, for me, again, I have to emphasize, so it really depends on specific situation, right? I feel what I'm presenting is just my experience, and it's not a template. For me, changing the topic was not because as I mentioned, my relationship with Nepal basically started from my research. Just it PhD गर्नलाई चाहिँ academic-मा म जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ I developed this connection with Nepal. So I developed that research proposal also at a time when I feel I don't have enough intellectual or emotional connection with this place. Does it make sense? Sometimes before I came to do, I did some preliminary field work before this year, but still, and based on that, I kind of developed that research proposal, but I always had this resistant feeling towards that original proposal. I can be very honest, I feel that's something I imagined in my Hong Kong office, but while I don't know much about Nepal. But when I look back, I think that is fine, that is a process. But I think I had a lot of kind of self-doubt in terms of, is this a valid research proposal? Is this something that I really want to do? So when I changed, I didn't feel like, well, I feel I still want to go back to the land and property thing I study, and sometimes I feel because maybe that project requires more kind of language skills and more kind of local knowledge, so that's why I didn't manage. But yeah, so speaking of that, I didn't feel a lot of kind of regrets because maybe this is my process. Maybe this is something I have to do. And this is not perfect because if I start, I wish I could start from one topic and just stick to it and I will be more productive. Well, this is my process and I accept that.
And that rarely happens in anthropology because you have to be very reflexive. And even if, for example, the things and the reality are ever changing. So there is no static reality out there. अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि चाहिँ अनि आफ्नो एकदम reflexive हुनुपर्छ. And sometimes talking about personality is also not a kind of very fixed objective entity. It also changes in relation to how other people actually look at you or take your work as. अनि त्यो सबै हिसाबले गर्दाखेरि यो सदस्यले भने चाहिँ अब क्लासै गाह्रो भइहाल्छ लेख्न. अनि कस्तो हुन्छ भने कहिले आफ्नो विषय मनपर्छ, म यो गर्छु लागिराखेको लेखिराखेको हुन्छ. त्यो प्रपोजलको टाइटल मात्रै प्रपोजल मात्रै इभन सिङ्गल वर्ड होइन, सिङ्गल क्वेसन, सिङ्गल वर्ड, सिङ्गल सेन्टेन्स पनि एकदम प्यारो हुन्छ आफूलाई. त्यही भएर मैले बेलामा भन्ने गर्छु त्यो लेख्ने बेलामा चाहिँ हामीले धेरै वेस्टर्नर्सहरू खैरीहरूले भन्छ त्यो अवस्थामा यु हेभ टु किल योर डार्लिङ भन्छ क्या होइन. आफूले कति माया गरेर उर्काएर मेहनत गरेर एउटा सेन्टेन्स लेख्यौँ, एउटा आफ्नो होइन आइडिया बनायो, अनि अब त्यो चेन्ज सिचुएसन चेन्ज भइरहेको हुन्छ होइन, अलिक रिफ्लेक्सिभ हुनु पऱ्यो. अनि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि त्यो चेन्ज गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. तर त्यो अगाडिको एकदम माया लाग्छ नि त होइन, त्यसलाई पछाडिलाई जोगाएर राख्ने कुनै बेला गरौँला भन्नु. अहिलेलाई चाहिँ त्यसले गर्दाखेरि यु हेभ टु बी द्याट क्रुअल to even to kill your gardening and then move to new topics and as per the context. त्यो एउटा हुन्छ. अर्को चाहिँ अब त्यो यो त्यही भएर रिफ्लेक्सिभ भन्दा त्यो लेख्नुपर्छ भने त्यो फिल्डवर्क भनेको खालि त्यो फिल्डमा गएर सोध्ने लेख्ने पनि त्यो लेख्ने पनि हो. त्यसले गर्दाखेरि बडी रिफ्लेक्सिभ हुनलाई सहयोग गर्छ होइन भन्ने कुरा एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण कुरा जस्तो लाग्छ.
मलाई थ्याङ्क यू फर भेरी गुड प्रेजेन्टेसन्स. मलाई चाहिँ सुनिराख्दाखेरि particularly when we talk about research issue, actually you are going to look the people-state relation. Previously you thought through the land and later on through the citizenship, right? So मलाई त्यो इस्युमा त्यत्रो धेरै डिफरेन्सेस आएको जस्तो पनि लागेन. Because how the rules are contradictory implemented either in the land or the citizenship or kinship relation, right? So where the issue is kind of the same issue, but you look the different window, right? So त्यो इस्यु चाहिँ इट्स काइन्ड अफ हामीले एन्थ्रोपोलोजीमा जनरली भनिराख्ने चाहिँ एक्जिस्टिङ अर मेजर प्याराडाइम्स एन्ड द कन्ट्राडिक्सन्स अर प्याराडक्स इन द प्र्याक्टिसेस भनेर जुन अर्डर इन प्याराडक्समा हामीले पढाए जस्तो गरी what are the established rule of the government, for instance, or the law, and what are actually practiced in the field or everyday life. त्यो चाहिँ either you can look in the land or citizenship or any other in the disaster context, for instance, right? त्यो हिसाबले हेऱ्यो भने चाहिँ तपाईले विन्डो हेर्ने इस्यु चाहिँ फरक बनाउनु भयो, तर मेजर टपिक चाहिँ यु आर स्टिल गोइङ टु लुक द रिलेसन बिट्विन द पिपुल, सिटिजन्स एन्ड द स्टेट, राइट? त्यो हिसाबले मलाई त्यो चाहिँ एकदम मन पर्यो। त्यो एन्थ्रोपोलोजिस्टले युजली त्यो फिल्डमा जाँदाखेरि when they go to the different setting or different context, they will use the different window or different issue हुन सक्छ। अर्को चाहिँ त्यो राइटिङ प्यासेज अफ द होल फिल्ड हो, इट्स अ काइन्ड अफ भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट। सरले अघि पनि भन्नुभयो, त्यो इट्स काइन्ड अफ ग्रेजुअली फर्मिङ अर बिकमिङ। त्यसले चाहिँ त्यो फिल्डवर्कलाई पनि र सेल्फलाई पनि मेच्योर्ड बनाउँछ। इट्स काइन्ड अफ मेच्युरिटी, हाउ you look the people and issue, how people look upon you, what are the story they made upon you, also part of fieldwork, हैन? त्यसले चाहिँ अघि भने जस्तो fieldworker like clear personality, हैन? मान्छेले के हो किन आएको, it's a kind of part of data, right? This is very good presentations that I also experience in my field. तपाईले जुन भन्नुभयो त्यो हामीले पनि फिल गरेर आउँछौँ। र सुरेश सरले भने जस्तो इट्स काइन्ड अफ कस्तो लाग्छ भने फिल्डवर्क काइन्ड अफ अनसर्टेनिटी, अनि त्यो तपाईलाई एन्जाइटी, इट्स अ काइन्ड अफ यो मेरो भइरहेको छैन। इफ यु किप योर द्याट एन्जाइटी कन्टिन्यू, त्यसले सर्टेन लेभलमा आइसकेपछि तपाईँलाई एउटा स्टेजमा पुऱ्याउँछ। सो द्याट एन्जाइटी एक्चुअली बिल्ड अप एन्ड पाइल्ड अप एन्ड यु रिच अन सर्टेन पोजिसन अर सर्टेन स्टेज, सो द्याट ओके नाउ आई बिकेम भन्ने स्टेजमा पुऱ्याउँछ। त्यो चाहिँ एकदमै इम्पोर्टेन्ट प्रोसेस, यो रिसर्चको प्रोसेस हो भन्ने लाग्छ। थ्याङ्क यू फर यर प्रेजेन्टेसन्स। मैले खालि त्यही तपाईँले हेरिराखेको कुरा चाहिँ एउटै कुरा हो, स्टेट पिपल रिलेसन, बट हाउ दिज आर कन्ट्राडिक्टरी इन प्र्याक्टिस, राइट? बट त्यो इस्यु चाहिँ ल्यान्डबाट यता सिटिजनसिप किनसिप रिलेसन्समा आयो। मलाई चाहिँ क्वाइट इन्ट्रेस्टिङ लाग्यो। थ्याङ्क यू।
So,
gender biases in research.
gender bias is
Gender bias, for me as a rather than bias, I will see like gender matters. So I don't know. Okay, maybe I don't have this body anymore, but we talk about access in fieldwork, right? And I feel like got access to these institutions. Well, it looks different in different levels of institutions or in different parts of fieldwork. In the ward offices, I feel I get access or I build relationship with the office through a very gendered way, in terms of sharing food, sharing tea, and sometimes making tea for everyone else. Right, so that's a very gendered labor, and that very gendered labor helps you get into that space. And does it make sense? Just people see me as nanny, and I kind of present myself as a very cooperative woman as well. So there are certain expectations of what a woman does, right? And I kind of learned that expectation as well in my fieldwork or in my living experiences maybe more, and I use that kind of to find myself a space, access in, for example, in the ward office. And sorry, and sorry.
So thank you, Miss Xing Li. I pronounce wish you for your successful PhD degree. I'm also getting this same problem because I was not anthropology. I did that anthropology or sociology studies, so I did different fields. And I'm still getting some daily math like every time I'm thinking and then just sifting the topics. Still I think I got wonderful results. Also. I want to share my experience as well. You just shifted your topic from land to citizenship. So I'm working in children organization. It is in Africa. So the Africa is also related to the problem of the citizenship. So I want to say two cases for you. So one of our child is now doing MBBS in Brilliant National College. And from the beginning, that's when we try to get the citizenship, we faced lots of problems. After that, successfully getting the citizenship, and she had to fill out that IAM form. And there is no provision. We should have to put their father name, their mother's name, everywhere. So the application was rejected so many times. And finally we did there, and so we explained that, and they changed that IAM form. And after that, at the time when we being to admission to our college, there is also a problem. No? So because they have to fulfill that like father's name and mother's name. Later on, that problem also solved. But she's getting every year, when they filling the forms. No? And now also she also facing the problem, but in opening the bank account. Because there is a provision of KYC. Your customer. The KYC need like this, have a detail of the father's mother's but she has not. There is a dispute, no? That is one issue of the citizen. And another issue, one boy, he's in I think it's 22, and he's aimed to be a British Army. And after the +2 education, and he went to the training for the British Army. In Nepal, there is provision they can go from the Nepal. And later on, we knew that the British government also need to like the details of their families. So he also rejected. There are lots of things. Maybe this might be helpful for your experience. So I'm saying, because often children who don't have the parents and others background, they also get into lots of problems. They have different kinds of problems to relate to the government. So thank you for your sharing. As I'm also getting much your experience and it might be helpful as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for. I would like to thank on the Anthony student and MA student on the heart for us. So thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Definitely, these are useful information for us. So I think we should stop somewhere around here. So with your final words, you can take like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes or 1 minute, as much as you like, and then we stop the class. And then those who are interested to have a TV, or we can go out and then have a tea together for another 20-30 minutes, so that we can also discuss informally.
उहाँले नेपाली बुझ्नुहुन्छ है
No, I'll keep on and just let's keep in touch and keep on.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. And it was wonderful.